And welcome everybody to our introduction to havening with Yiska Obadia. I'm so excited because in advertising for this, I had to write what havening was every time. And I was like, I still have no idea what it is. Like, what is it that I'm telling people to come learn about? Like, it's going to make you feel better. And I don't know, I go like this when I talk about it, but so I'm going to pass the floor to you to do an introduction. For those of you that don't know Yiska, what I'll say is she is my all-time in the world most favorite body worker ever, and I will do anything that she tells me to do. And I'm feeling really sad that I'm not like on the table behind her right now. That's what I said to her when she came on. I was like, I just want to go there. So I'm really excited to learn about havening as a way for me to maybe reduce my stress and anxiety, and also help clients move through stress and anxiety, especially as it relates to preparing for childbirth and recovering from childbirth. So you take the floor, and then I'll manage chat box questions and we'll chat. Okay. Yay.
Great. Cool. So my intention is that I'll talk a little bit about what havening is, but ultimately we're going to do a practice with it. And that's how you'll really experience what havening is. So it's a modality, a psychosensory modality is how it's referred to, which means that it influences our mental and emotional state, influences our brain actually, and through the sensory nervous system, and specifically through the use of touch. So havening touch is a prescriptive kind of touch that the founders or the developers of this modality studied and learned was the most effective at producing this certain effect. The effect that we're talking about is, generally speaking, calms the nervous system. I'll demonstrate this touch just so you know what I'm talking about to put into context, and then we'll practice together as well. But the three main areas where we do the touch is on the, this is why, Ashley, you go to hug yourself, because this is one of the main areas where we do the touch. And the palms of the hands, and then the face. My hands are clean, so I feel comfortable doing this. If you don't want to do your face or you want to clean your hands fresh, you can. And so these two doctors, they're actually twins. They're medical doctors. One is a dentist actually, and one is a general practitioner. And they were initially introduced to tapping. Some people have heard of tapping or EFT. This is in the same family as a psychosensory modality. It's in the same family of EMDR, tapping. There's some overlap with hypnosis. There's some overlap with just other modalities that are in that vein, in that category. The idea being that when we apply this touch, or it's applied to us, so when people work one-on-one with a practitioner in person, somebody does that to you. You sit opposite somebody and they stroke down your arms, down your face, your palms. When my practitioner is actually in the UK from prior to COVID. So what they learned in studying about about havening is that it's equally as effective if you do the touch on yourself. So self-havening, whether you're doing a self-havening practice for yourself as part of your regular kind of self-care, or you're self-havening while being led virtually through a process by a trained practitioner, either one can work if you're doing the touch yourself. So when I say work, like what does work mean? What it means is that what they studied was that when these areas are touched, delta brainwaves are produced. It's the slowest brainwave frequency that we experience. And what they discovered is that when we're exposed to delta brainwaves, our brain is highly malleable. Like the chemicals that are on the surface of our cells that might light up when we're scared or triggered in some way, distressed in some way, whether it's from, whether it's like an intense and specific phobia, or a trigger related to a very specific trauma, or a completely generalized because our brain is so complex and has mapped out all of these like neural pathways that get triggered and feel anger or frustration or fear or anxiety or nervousness or whatever the distress is around certain triggers, that when those are activated and exposed to delta brainwaves, they change. So in a one-on-one context, and in which it was originally developed, someone who has a trauma, who is activated by something that sniffs of that, you know, traumatic experience, and the brain is activated when they're exposed to havening touch and those delta brain waves, it actually affects the chemistry of that reactivity and can have somebody go from having a completely traumatic reaction or phobia or panic attack or whatever to actually not having any nervous stress response to that thing. You can completely, and now I've experienced it myself, where I've had clients who will come, and in the context of, you know, birth and postpartum, but of course in any context, you know, maybe pregnant after having had a traumatic first birth and starting to find themselves feeling nervous now that they're pregnant again, thinking about the birth. So being able to use havening to reactivate, relive the experience that they had, and with those delta brain waves, with the havening touch, really clear, not the story of what happened, like they can remember what happened, but the activation around it, the actually feeling like nervous and stressed and activated in our nervous system goes away, and they can really have like a peaceful rest of their pregnancy and go into their birth. You know, you know, in that cleared field, what do they want to experience? What do they want to create? You know, what do they want to connect with? And so it can be used to both heal those neurological pathways that are associated with prior trauma and stress, and it can also help us build neurological pathways for more hearty, healthy neurological connectedness to positive things, right? So it's kind of like if you imagine your neurological landscape, you know, has, I'll keep the analogy super simple, like one pathway to calm. It's like a highway with a one-lane highway, and it's got one lane to accessing calm. So if someone repeatedly self-havens and or works with a practitioner to cultivate a feeling of calm, to bring their nervous system stress baseline down, and really actively cultivate the experience of calm using the touch to affect the brain, they can build that highway out to like 7 lanes, right? So it doesn't mean that there might be, let's say, you know, an accident might happen on that highway, and they might even stop and get off and see if I can help and respond to that, but they're not stopped. You can get around it. You can access calm, and it doesn't have to like completely trap you or stop you in your tracks. So, and that's been my experience with it, because now I self-haven every day. So I just, you know, will in my morning practice. Some people will combine it with their meditation practice that they already have that exists, or their yoga practice. And some people will just develop it from scratch. I didn't have a daily practice that was that consistent before, so it is my meditation practice. So I do the touch, and I will sometimes, if I'm having something that's stressful for me, I might cry to myself. I might just like feel that. And if I'm in a neutral place, I will just think about, what do I want to feel more of? What do I want to feel more of that day? Or if I'm going through a period of time, I might want to like just really feel more and more gratitude, or feel more and more calm or trust. That is often one. Calm and trust is one that I work with a lot. So basically, when we're self-havening, because the palms are one of the places that they found trigger the most delta brain waves, it's basically they hooked people up to electrodes that can register what brain waves are happening, and they found that the face, right, touch on the face is the highest producer of any place you can touch on your body, the highest producer of that like calm, slow brainwave, right? And we know it from like, this is how we soothe babies. This is basic. This is not, they didn't like invent touch. They developed it as a modality that we can use to certain effects. But right, like if you go to comfort someone pre-COVID, right? You hug them. You might do something like this, right? You might stroke their body in this kind of repeated soothing way. It's a very human way that we comfort and soothe. And so it's just created a little bit more structure around it. Now, what I'm going to show you guys today is definitely more for like for your own benefit, to really be able to apply anything to clients. They really recommend an in-depth training, my training, because it seems, what I'm going to introduce you to will seem pretty simple, and there is a certain simplicity to it. And at the same time, because our neurology is so intertwined and we carry so much from our past, you just don't know what you're going to tap. So if you don't have that training, it's really advised not to be practicing this on anyone. Now, instinctively, for anyone here who's a birth professional, you 1,000 times have done this like on your clients. So you don't have to like stop doing that. You can even just do what is havening touch. But I'm trying to not call it havening, and try to not have you like try to practice havening on anyone other than what I'm going to share with you today for yourself. And now as the organization, the havening organization has developed, they've realized that self-havening is its own whole toolkit for people. That if you don't necessarily want to do one-on-one work, and you don't want to necessarily work through a specific trauma or fear pattern or something like that, and want to really just cultivate a self-care practice with havening, that you can do that. So there are now classes that you can do for that, as well as training to do it professionally. So does that make sense, just like as a basic introduction to what it is? Okay. So should I invite, Ashley, do you think I should invite any questions before we start the practice, or save questions for after we do it?
I think folks can put questions into the chat, but I think we should practice.
Okay, cool. Great. So what I'm going to have you do is, just before you start the touch, close your eyes just for a moment to check in with yourself. And if you could, on a subjective scale from 0 to 10, 10 being the most stressful, 0 being no stress, just check in with what your baseline is that we're entering this at. And there's no one right number. Just give a self-assessment of how high or low down on that scale roughly you feel. So now you can open your eyes to follow me for the touch. And if you don't have a number yet, that's fine. You can take your time to come to it. But I will keep going. So The touch to start is right here on your arms. And you can, it helps me a lot when I close my eyes. So we'll just go quickly through the touch, and then you can close your eyes and go inward. The face, again, for anyone who came in later, is another powerful place to soothe. And then the palms of the hands. And what you can just notice for yourself is where you like it the most. Just, there might be one of those spots that feels especially nice to you. So you could stay there longer or even the whole time. And if you wanted to not just get stuck in one particular touch pattern, you could move around but spend most of your time in the area that feels most particularly calming for you. So closing your eyes and just take a couple of breaths. Nice, full, slow breaths. Feel yourself starting to just settle into your seat a little bit. And whatever pace the touch feels right to you is perfect. And I'm gonna also have you just do a little experiment to see what it feels like if you slow it down, like if you do it at a half tempo and you really feel what it's like to feel your skin or your clothing, to feel the contact of your hands, maybe the temperature, the texture that's there. And just notice if slowing down feels especially relaxing. So whatever the stress is that you're walking in with, whatever that level is that you notice, just check in with if there's a particular, as you continue the touch, if there's a particular area of your body where that stress baseline is particularly living. So as you're doing the touch, just scanning your body a little bit to see where that stress or that tension might be especially activated. Without needing to change it, just noticing. And now you're going to completely put it out of mind. And we're going to just imagine ourselves going on a walk on a beach. Now, if you don't like the beach, you can choose to walk somewhere that you do like. Someplace in nature that feels like you would just be super happy to be there. And for the rest of you on the beach, wherever you are, just looking around, noticing what you see there, noticing what's happening in the sky, if there are clouds or if it's clear. Just taking a breath and breathing in the air of nature, feeling the breeze, maybe the sun on your skin. Just noticing if there are plants around you or what the ground looks like, the earth. And we're going to take a walk. I'm going to count steps out loud. We're going to take 20 steps along the shore or along whatever path you're walking. And if you aren't walking at exactly the same pace as me, that's okay. But we'll just try to imagine that we're each kind of keeping tempo together. So I'll count the steps till 20, walking along the shore, walking along your path. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Feel your feet on the ground. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And just stop, take a breath, feel your feet on the ground. Wherever you are, I want you to turn, looking out to the horizon and imagining that the sun is setting. And you can see the ball just dropped below the horizon, so you can look out. And it's just spacious and the colors are beautiful. And just notice to yourself, what are the colors? What are the 3 main colors that you see in your sunset? And just look at how radiant the sky is, how the colors outline the clouds as they change shape and spread across the sky. And take a breath. Take in the air, take in the sky. And we're going to do something a little silly now while you're continuing your touch. We're going to just hum. If you're in a place where you feel like you can't hum, that's okay. You can imagine yourself humming. If you are in a space where you can hum, I want you to hum along with me to the tune for If You're Happy and You Know It. If you don't know that tune, that's okay. You can just like listen along. But I'll go ahead and do it. And you can do it with me if you know it. We'll do it one more time. And just take a breath and come back to feeling your touch, feeling your hands on your skin, on your arms, your face, your hands, wherever you're touching. And even just a little creative license, if you feel like there's a place on your body that it would feel nice to touch, that's not one of those spots. Because havening can work by stimulating the palms, if you self-haven with your palms on your chest or your belly or your scalp or anywhere on your body, it will also contribute to delta waves. So what I want you to do now is actually pause your touch then. And just come back to noticing that stress that you had noted when we started. If it was, say, a 6, has it changed? Has the number come down at all? And if it hasn't, that's fine. And if it has, great. And then when you've made a note of that, I want you to come back to your havening touch. And I want you to imagine that whatever residual amount of that stress is there, that I want you to imagine that it starts to release. And we're going to chant. You can either chant inside your own head if you're in a place that you feel like you can't say this out loud. And if you're in a place where you feel like you can say it out loud, you will chant this just like me. And the words are just like this. I release. I let go. And you're going to do it with the touch and your breath. And just every time you chant, I release, I let go, you invite one more level, one more degree of release, of softening, of fading, of melting for whatever that tension or stress might be. And it's okay if it just, maybe it softens just 10 more %. Or maybe it just floats away just, 15% more. Whatever it is, every time you chant, I release, I let go. It softens, it melts, it fades. So we'll do that just for a few more breaths like that. I release, I let go. 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 And you can imagine like sand being carried out to the ocean when the wave comes in and then it takes it away, that your own stress, your own tension releases just like the sand getting pulled out to sea. Or like a rock that's getting pounded in the river by the water and just softening, just softening the edges of that tension or that stress. Release and let go. Release and let go. Maybe it's like a cloud fading, passing through and dissipating through the sky. Or a dandelion seed just blowing in the wind, getting farther and farther and farther away. Release and let go. Release and let go. And take a breath. And whatever you notice yourself feeling now, wherever you are is perfect. Maybe it feels different than when we started. Or not. Wherever you're at is okay. And just with our last minute, what I want you to do, so I want you to imagine that you have a basket in front of you. Inside is every positive emotion that you've ever felt in your life. And I want you to pull out one that feels especially, would feel really nice to connect with right now. Maybe it's joy or calm or gratitude, whatever it is. Pluck out some positive feeling, some positive just quality of being. I'm choosing grateful right now. And I'm going to just repeat grateful a few times for our last 30 seconds. And you can repeat your own word and your own feeling. Every time you say it, I want you to imagine with every stroke of your evening touch and with every repetition of that word, of that feeling, you can feel it getting a little bit fuller a little bit stronger inside of you. Grateful, 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 grateful. Just feeling that feeling more and more present, more and more strong inside. Grateful, grateful, grateful. And we'll do it 10 more times. I'll count us down. Grateful, 10. Grateful, 9. You say yours. Grateful, 8. Grateful, 7. Grateful, 6. Grateful, 5. Grateful, 4. Grateful, 3. Grateful, 2 more. Grateful, 1 more. Grateful. And you can just continue your havening touch for a few more strokes, keeping your eyes closed. And when you bring your touch to a pause, staying inward with your eyes closed just for an extra few seconds, just to feel yourself, to notice and feel how you may feel different than when we started, when you got on this call. And then when you feel ready to, you can open your eyes. So I am definitely looking forward to hearing from some people about, what that experience was like for you. It's a taste, like what we're here to do, just have a taste of how that kind of self-soothing touch, that havening touch, can impact your own nervous system. And from there, it's the kind of thing that you could either explore the possibility of working with a practitioner one-on-one. You could explore the possibility of a self-havening kind of a class for yourself. Or even, just exploring more about if it's something you want to bring into your skill set to help, with clients or students or family. A lot of the times, because, that touch, when we do that, when you haven someone, you're being havened. So you do this to your children, or you do this to your pets. There is something inherently calming for our nervous system about that. Obviously, it's super helpful in pregnancy and birth, in between contractions kind of thing, more so than typically during contractions, but at the right moment, so has lots and lots and lots of applications. So you can kind of just take this first experience and think about, what you might want to explore next. I certainly want to answer any questions and hear, if anyone wants to share about that experience, like how you feel differently than when you started, or if you noticed or you want to share about what that process was like for you. I'd be very curious to hear always that feedback, and certainly any questions.
So if folks have questions, you can put them into the chat box. I can share and we can chat for a second. And then I think what I'll do is stop the recording so that everybody can just share openly
Okay, great.
without being on the recording. But so logistically, this also seems like something you can do virtually. Like if somebody wanted more practice, they could do a session with, like, what I'm trying to figure out is, had you shown me the touch, it wouldn't have felt as good as having you then like verbally walk me through the meditation that goes along with it, right?
Yeah, the more practice you get with it, the more you can lead yourself into an experience. But certainly from the one-on-one experience, even virtually, like I said, my practitioner pre-COVID was in the UK. So from the moment I started, she was guiding me through sessions. So that guidance can be either very unique to something that I'm exploring and working with, to something along the lines of this kind of guiding you through visualization and that kind of like self-havening practice, and then you could try practicing that more on your own until you felt good with that and come back for more layers of it. So yeah, one-on-one, it works incredibly virtually, as good as in person. And that's kind of the exciting thing about it, especially now.
The thing that's interesting to me, like when we do our comfort and coping class online, at the beginning, we worried that people wouldn't be able to move into positions, or we wouldn't be able to model like massage techniques for labor virtually. And you actually just did comfort and coping, so I would be interested to hear from you. But I've also, what we've learned at Birthsmarter and talking to physical therapists, they've said sort of the same thing, which is that when you're not in person with someone, there's so much more, like the client takes on so much more agency and like embraces the expertise that they have in their body and sort of follows their own lead, as opposed to just doing what they think is right, like doing what we're telling them to do. And what I felt doing that practice with you was, I mean, I moved through like a very intense range of emotions.
Good.
At the beginning, I think it was just deciding to participate, right? That like, I feel really comfortable with the level of stress and anxiety that I have right now because it feels safe. Like it's clearly not benefiting me, but it's like, this is the devil I know. And what happens if I let go of it and I don't have that adrenaline anymore? Like what happens? So there was a range of emotions, and then I got to a place where I felt, it was interesting, like almost like I was on the table, right? Like, oh, I don't need somebody else, like I can do this and go through this process on my own. And it's still like very much of what I was hoping to get out of something like body work.
That's great. I mean, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I think that I love the fact that it's like in our own two hands, and yes, that somebody can guide us through something. But at the end of the day, as practitioners, we always feel like we're being client-led anyway. We're only going to go someplace that the person wants to go. You can't make somebody go someplace energetically or emotionally that they don't want to go, anyway, not on the table, not in a class, not with havening, not with anything, so all that really translates here. And, that like the willingness to do it was because you were willing. And I do hear what you're saying about like keeping the adrenaline up as a sense that if I let it go, will I collapse and have no energy? And I think a lot of people are operating on that, but it could be an interesting thing to explore for yourself, the truth or the falseness of that, or what is truth of that and what is not truth of that. And if there's a place for something that does help, if there's a place for something that does help your nervous system have some places where it can down-regulate, re-energize, and then go back on, right? Because obviously there's a purpose for us having adrenaline. There's a purpose for us, being in more young or energized states, but it's the yin yang thing. It's the balance, right? But I love that you were able to access that virtually through your own touch. And yes, the self-havening piece I love, because it's just right there in our hands. And yes, it's always nice to be guided to some degree, but then you could see that it's something that you could very much walk yourself through. And that's what I do as a regular part of my practice.
If somebody is doing this like as a daily meditation, right? How long would you suggest they do it versus hey, I want to dig up my birth trauma?
Yeah. I don't recommend doing that as a morning meditation.
No, so like logistically, right? Is it like, you do 5 minutes in the day, but then like how much time should I carve out if I want to sort of relive some trauma and try to use havening to get myself through that?
So we really don't recommend people trying to guide themselves through, their own, it's like, yeah, could you possibly have a powerful self-guided experience through that? Yes, but not all havening is just reliving it and just doing the touch. There are different like protocols of how we work with when somebody is activated around a trauma. You don't stay there. You do a lot of distraction, and you can't distract yourself. So you can move through intense emotions on your own. Some havening practitioners caution about doing that at all, and really advise that the self-havening is used more for the simple self-soothing and cultivating more emotional resiliency, right? Mm-hmm. Like cultivating a sense within the nervous system that you are safe. And so that you have that baseline experience, right, of your own safety may not be what someone else is walking around with. So we don't recommend that someone do that. We don't know what the foundation is on which it all rests. And if there's significant trauma, and even sometimes if there's not necessarily what someone might consider significant trauma, but any place where the system doesn't feel safe, it's going to be much more beneficial for somebody to go through it with a practitioner than on their own. And then they can follow it up with self-havening practices. My practice now is, when I feel like I want to work through something, I message my woman in the UK and we schedule a session. And usually when I'm trying to work through a particular issue or something like that, I might see her once a week for like 3 weeks. And then it's like, great, I'm feeling good with that. Cool. And then, a month or months could go by before I want to contact her to do individual work. And then in between, I'm doing that resiliency building. I'm doing that. It might be literally, there are days where it's 2 minutes. And then there are days where I'm there for like 10 or 15 minutes because it's so juicy and it feels good. And it feels good to kind of cry and have a release with myself, as well as connect with whatever, positive things that I want to connect with on the other side of that. So, it's a disservice to say it's any one thing, because it's really like lots of different ways to use it. But I feel like self-havening is usually a nice way of filling out, doing one-on-one work with somebody. And then if you're doing it as a practitioner, it's just nice to maintain your own kind of baseline, calm or sense of inner safety or inner, peacefulness. Again, it's the highway thing. It's not that accidents don't happen. It's not that you don't get ever stressed out or freak out, but it's very accessible. So I might be having a conversation with my husband and notice myself getting stressed, and I'll just be like, okay, and it honestly, it helps me get through, because otherwise I'll, if I can feel myself about to blow a gasket and I don't want to, sometimes I do want to, but like, if I don't want to, I have this as a very reliable tool to help bring myself back down. So I can use it in a moment like that, or I can be on the subway and just take a moment to feel calm or feel grateful or something like that. Or I can use it on the plane when I'm, having my plane phobia. And I actually did without working one-on-one with someone. I did work myself through having like almost panic attacks going to fly to like being okay, like needing like maybe a minute of this at the beginning of a flight. So, but that's also because I was trained and I had practiced for so long, so I would never recommend that right out the gate. Right out the gate, you should have some kind of intensive experience for yourself with what's possible with the modality, whether it's as a practitioner or as an individual or both. And then from there, you can have it in your life however it suits your life, But out of the gate, you can do like what we did and experiment with how you might put that in your day or use it with your kids or partners or whoever and see, if it feels like a supportive tool. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so folks can find you at yiskaobadia.com and they can find us at birthsmarter.com. And I'm going to stop the recording.